Have you read our book already? I know you bought our book.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I hope you find it interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Because everyone can manipulate data. Nobody can manipulate all the energy that is up there in the sky. Who can manipulate the movement of planets that will translate into all these trends?
How has 2022 been with regards to investment for some of your good, bad, not so good, mediocre? Just comment, so that Evelyn would have some idea. I think the bear is going to be very fierce.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 2022 has been a good 3 months lah, but I think after that things started to deteriorate very fast.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
2022 actually is a very good year to profit take. I profit take at the beginning of the year. In fact, after the first quarter, I'm also a bit, I'm also a bit like late already because I already knew the trend is coming because I know how to read all these charts. So roughly I know when, to exit already. The other time when some of the guys who attended our talks last month, I also give hints, 2023, when to exit. I really would like to thank every one of y'all to be here tonight, joining me and PC for this Water Rabbit Year forecast book preview. Okay, so basically, we just wanted to sort of, have a brief preview on what our book is all about. It's a very new idea, actually. And actually, PC is the one who thought about it, that, combining astrology with global trends, and we can have a better insights into the future, into the global trends, the global economy. And this will enable us to make a much better, investment decision. This is always our tagline here, because right now we know that data can be manipulated, but energies that affect the global economy can never be manipulated. Okay, so you see, most of the economies has already a lot of prediction on what 2023 is all about. Some says that all eyes on inflation. Some says that, increasingly gloomy. Some, I think, says that it's not so bad. So we really needs to verify this situation, that is it really that bad or not. It's a mix of good and bad, because the social media has enabled so many opinions in multiple platforms, either through a forum or through YouTube, which is the most popular one, or somewhere else that we also do not know who is credible, who is not credible, who can we trust.
Yeah, especially for those investment banks, they often would like to portray that things are not so bad, so that the people keep funding their investment. If they say that things are very, very bad next year, suddenly everyone to exit from the funds, and therefore all the hedge funds and investment-driven funds, they would have immediate redemption. So that's why you will see that a lot of investment banks, they would like to make the issue that it's going to be a slowdown, but it's not going to be bad. But all the data is pointing towards things that is going to be much worse. And I think Evelyn's study of the astrology is also pointing towards that direction. So that's why there's always some vested interest here. In fact, IMF is predicting that next year is going to be some marginal growth, even for Europe. IMF throughout its history have never predicted a negative growth, because they want people to feel confident. Okay, and like I say, those investment funds that requires funding from the public, they always want to paint the picture that is not so bad, so that the funds keep on coming in. the moment that things are bad, then they start, the redemption of funds starts, then they put some limit. Like recently, Blackstone, one of the major investment funds that is invested in many REITs. So they actually put restriction on the redemption of REITs because the property market is tanking in the US, So that's what they do. And that's why they always want to paint a picture that even recession, they will say it's mild, but in true essence, it's actually going to be pretty bad.
Oh,
okay.
It's going to be a meltdown. I'm not frightening everyone here. True. Okay. I think most of y'all already know me. I see some familiar names that has attended, our session in the monthly talk about the global trends. So first of all, let me just do a very brief introduction of myself. I'm actually, I would say that I'm actually an engineering professional, which I have served the multinational company for the past 30 years. Now I have, have a gig as a Chinese astrology. I have services like helping people to solve problems, looking into their destiny, looking into their future, giving them guidance, transform their life, and also some feng shui consultancy as well. Later on, I will put a link on where you can reach me if you are interested in my services. So I have a passion in wealth management. That's why I joined KC Lau. I am in, BC program on invest in foreign shares. And I hope also to use this knowledge, not only just astrology, but combining with real studies to help clients to achieve results and through the power of divine. And throughout my years of 30 years in MNC, I have managed over hundreds of manufacturing companies as a supplier, supply chain manager, as a supplier quality manager. People like LG, Panasonic, Motorola, Samsung, and I really have access to all these very big companies manufacturing so-called, confidential secrets, because I audit their lines. I know who they are and the productivity. Okay, in fact, I'm one of the first who qualified some of Samsung's line in LCD for the 3rd and 4th generation in the past. Okay, so I'm also an author of 4 books related to manufacturing engineering, personal development, because I've been into the corporate world. I know what is it. I've been into the leadership position. I have, worked with those, my subordinates, and also drive them and mentor them. So this is why I wrote the book. And right now, this year, I'm very privileged to work with PC on this book called Astrology and Global Trend, where we want to innovate the whole global trend studies to have, an additional layer of astrology to verify the information and also give foresights so that we can filter out all those unnecessary information. Because even before the next month comes, I already know what is going on, what is coming in the next month. I think some of you attended the talk, they know that, we do have accuracy up to about 80%, maybe sometimes about 80+% when the energy signal is very clear. So, so why that, an engineering professional like me can, believe in Chinese astrology? Because it was deemed as something as superstitious in the past. And what I did is that when I first come across astrology, I was quite doubtful. But at that time, there are a few masters who is quite scientific already. They start to explain, the planets, the solar system. And I have an interest in astronomy, not astrology. So I also study those patterns, those planets, those stars, and those constellations as well. And after that, I found out that actually the Chinese astrology is based on the 5 elements. And where the 5 elements is, 5 elements is actually equivalent to energies only. That's all, the metal energy. I think those who are very familiar with Chinese, metaphysics, they will know that the wood, fire, and earth, metal, and water. And where did they derive all this energy from? is actually from the 5 planets. Uranus and Neptune is further away from Earth. That's why in the past, people cannot see it. And people term, in the ancient days, people term planets as a star because they cannot differentiate between a planet and a star in the past. And at the time, people already start studying, you know, all these stars, all this constellation, and then make a records on the trends that's going on that in the ancient days in China and also actually in India. But Chinese is more accurate. I don't say Chinese is more accurate, but Chinese has a better records. If you are Chinese, you will know that we have very great Chinese historians that recorded all this pattern. That's why we can correlate and use it till today. Okay. And as I explained that, you know, this is Earth and all this movement, orbits and all this, whatever the wave, this one, how they stay in the planets, although we cannot see energy, definitely there is an energy that is, you know, been given up from those planets to the Earth, and it impacted all the living lives, all the human lives on Earth, on the macro economy and also on the micro, our personal destiny as well. And if you look at it, Jupiter and Saturn are actually the biggest planet in the solar system. Therefore, their energy will be the greatest. That's why if you heard about Chinese culture and all the spraying of Tai Sui or Duke of Jupiter, this is actually the biggest planet that is giving out the biggest energy. That's why it's so powerful every year. And what happened is that from all this energy, how do people correlate it and able to interpret it? So what happened is that in the ancient times, they will, you know, study the pattern and all this. They will start charting out the time, the date, and even the direction. And they put in all this information in what we call the 10,000 years calendar. And they can translate, now it's a Gregorian date, right? Last time people used lunar dates based on the cycle of the moon, and even the solar date based on the 60 jiazi, means that all the 5 elements in that. So right now, we have softwares, and it has made it easier to just, you know, input the dates and translate it into 5 energy charts like this. This one will give you the information of the year, the month, the day, and the hour. So it's very precise. And the energy map I show you here is what we term as the arrival of spring or the Li Chun chart. This Li Chun chart will govern the trends for the year, whether it will be a good year for the people, whether the government, you know, will be powerful. It's all can be read from this chart here, from based on the 5 elements, because all these 5 elements represent something. They symbolize something that is related to the economy. For example, the government, the people, and also, you know, the supply chain, and the output, the productivity is actually all in this chart. It's also the same that, you know, we read our own destiny chart is also the same thing. So today we will just focus on this global trends, on this arrival of spring chart that will give you a snapshot of what to expect on the coming year, because in the past they use it for the farmers and to predict the harvest for the year, because it will also give you a trend on the weather as well. And weather is very closely correlated to the crops or to the yield of the crops. So here I shall go through that. This chart, preferably we will like all this chart to be balanced, because all these elements, they create each other, and then they also, you know, counter each other, clash each other. So we want these all cycles, the relationship all to be in and in harmony. Whenever the year, the energy, one energy is stronger than the other, or you don't have the presence of another energy, it will be quite weak. For example, in 2023, I think this year, the tiger year, we don't have enough of output. Okay, means that productivity is very less, and too much of wealth means that the money market or the finance market is going to go haywire because we cannot sort of manage it, and it will sort of, it will sort of been it will sort of impact the people as a whole, as we can see now here. So in this chart 2023, let's look at it in the day chart. This one, this year, the people are represented by water. Okay, basically we call it koi water. If you know the terms in Chinese metaphysics, that means we are the vehicle, we are the people here. Okay, and then we look at all this existence of the what exists in the chart. The 5 elements exist in the chart, and it will give us that, how it will impact us. Okay, so the way I will read the chart is that we will have, if you look at the chart, don't you think we have a lot of fire energy? The wood here will also create fire because wood create fire. It's very strong. And actually, in terms of the 5 elements relationship, the water counters fire. What we control is the wealth. So the fire element for the wealth element for this year is 2023 is represented by the fire. Okay, and whenever we have too much wealth, doesn't mean it's good. Even we in Chinese also, last time we also say, if you have a lot of wealth, your body will be weak. That's also a saying. Okay, so that means we cannot control the wealth. Whenever you cannot control your finances, your wealth, it's going to get haywire. This is the meaning of it. And also the fire is so big in terms of agriculture. This one also represents agriculture. It's going to have crops problem. That means food items will go up because I think most of our foods comes from agriculture. And the water is so small. That means it is this one. And also you notice, let me test our audience here. Do you notice that elements are missing here? Hello? Do you see that the elements are missing here? Anyone? Can you just put in the chat? Do you look at, do you realize that there's some elements that are missing in the chart? We have 5 elements, right? So far we talk about 3. Anyone? Oh, yes, Lily, thank you. Okay, so we have actually metal and earth earth missing because earth will control the water, means that it's government is weak. They are really quite weak. In a lot of countries you can see that the government also collapsing. And what happened is that because of the water give rise to the wood, we also have a lot of people that are quite rebellious. Innovation also means rebellious. This is a rebelling star. So everything will be quite chaotic. And metal, first of all, earth absence. Secondly is metal. Metal is actually resource. Metal creates water. So it's actually a resource for people. A resource for people in the global trend means what? Means supply chain. Supply chain disappeared. So it will have also problem.
I think one of the key things that we know for sure is that there is ongoing decoupling from China initiated by the US and the European Union. So when China is the factory of the world, when you want to decouple from China, that means that there's going to be supply chain problem. And deglobalization actually will create inflation, because where you have one factory doing for the whole world, suddenly you have 10 factories doing the same thing. but to individual countries themselves. So that is why it's like having one factory and having 10 factories would put a demand on the resource is not well spent. And because they are looking at individual interests, what they do, they want to accumulate the resources for themselves and not share it with others. And therefore, I think that will cause, deglobalization will actually cause inflation. Yeah, back to you, Evelyn.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So that's why never lies, the trend correlates. So, okay, so these 5 elements also, they will represent a sector in the economy. For example, wood, it will represent agriculture, fashions, and also growth, education, because wood grow. If you want a more, a more detailed one, I have a YouTube channel inside. I will put in the YouTube channel link later on, which shows you the 5 elements, what they represent actually in the economic sector. So fire represents technology and also energy, and could be also food, restaurant, foods, entertainment, and all this. And then earth, they represent properties and also, natural resources and insurance. This is part of it. And metal represents financial, okay, money, market, automobile, precious metal, heavy machinery. And water represents consumer goods, shipping, transportation, and also tourism. So what happened is that when just now we see the chart, a lot of wood and also fire means that these 2 sectors not necessarily they will make money. Means that there will be a lot of attention on these 2 items. On these 2 sectors, okay, so maybe a lot of people wants to go into it, or this one, but the one that it will really makes money is the one that has very small or almost none one. Sometimes if you play your cards correctly, you're providing the solution to balance out the chart. That is where the opportunity comes in. Okay, and okay, so as I say is that why Chinese astrology is correlated to the global trends. And what I'm doing today is nothing new. It has been done by those emperors' advisor few thousand years ago in China, because there was no internet, no YouTube, no TV at the time to tell emperor which region will have problems. So this is how they study the trend. They will tell you the harvest of the year and everything. So it has been used then to predict harvest, weather, disasters, and also, the mankind, whether they will prosper this year or not. So this is why, we have astrology and global trends. And another thing is that I would like to bring to everyone's attention is we are also in the era of a change. So a lot of people, like asking, right now, all the trends here seems that everything is changing like very fast. And is this, just temporary? It's here to stay. It's not temporary, because we are already going into a new earth cycle. Every 20 years there will be a new earth cycle. The 2000s to 2020s until officially next year is actually an earth period. Okay, later I will explain. And we are into a new era of from 2024 onwards, we were 100% in the fire era. Fire means that everything changed. Everything burns fast. Everything is fast. So this is the meaning of it. Okay. And so this one, I think this one, when we were in the stable earth period, it's like a stable mountain, and also the financial boom. I think for the past 20 years, we've enjoyed financial booms, even good employments, through hard work. I personally have enjoyed 30 years of good corporate world. Okay, although I of course every day I solve problem for the corporates. So but I enjoy that. So it's like employment almost for life. Okay, and also I think y'all know what is the best assets to invest in those periods. Can someone give me no? What do you think that is the best assets to invest in those days, in the past 20 years? Anyone? Hello? Some interaction?
Yeah. What sector do you think has benefited most during the last 20 years? No, people are more non-committal.
Okay. So I think everyone knows that is actually property. Don't you think property goes up, the price double, triple? And right now, we are in the flickering fire era already. Okay. So we are going into social media. The COVID has set everything. And then the attention is always fame and recognition because fire never sits still one. You always want to shine one, want to let people know one. 1,000 miles also can see that fire already. So that one commands attention. And in the stable era also, because that time there was a Kengua. If you know what the trigram is, a Kengua means that a young man. So that's why you see all these people coming up like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and also, you know, Michael Dell. I worked for Michael Dell's company for many, many years. Okay. So, and also Mike Zuckerberg. And indirectly, he's my ex-boss, it's the command. Okay. So if you work in the corporate world, you know that the women leadership is coming up also. It's already coming. And next is also the hexagram. Another way to predict 2023 is also through hexagram, which is also thunder over lake. It's not peaceful. Okay, so generally this is some of the things that we use. Some of the tools. Of course, there will be more. I think some of you who knows more of Chinese metaphysics, there will be Qimendun Jia year chart and all these things. I will not delve into that because this is much complicated and more sophisticated. Okay, so generally I can tell you, having go through all these 5 elements, 5 sectors, generally I can tell you that the economy sector that will have lots of attention will be technology, energy, and crypto. Then education, agriculture also. If you are into education, actually it's quite good. But people are looking for innovation in education. I'm actually now into trainings for the corporates. And some of my clients told me they do not want old materials anymore. They want to look at new innovations. Okay, so I'm supposed to give them a new innovation in the education for the field that I'm a subject master expert in. So for water, it will be logistics, travel, and there will be not much attention activity that I would see compared to 2022. Then property, stagnant. Precious metal, automobile will be not enough supply. Not enough supply. But however, actually the supply chain is that have been working in the supply chain for more than 10 years. Sometimes the top there, not enough supplies. The bottom there, not yet feel the pain one. It will be like, after a while, like a few months, at least 6 to 7 months, later on, it will feel the pain because we are in the long supply chain, one supply chain to another until the consumer market part. Then we realize that it's no more, the supply is no more. Okay. So, okay, that's all for my section, PC. And I think over to you, PC.
Yeah, okay. So maybe you stop sharing, then I can.
Okay, can.
Okay, hold on while I share my okay, hopefully I downloaded my
if not, I can share from my part and you can
I think you share your screen back to sharing your screen
okay, can.
I haven't seen that.
You have no revision, right?
No.
Okay, let's share.
Okay,
no problem.
Continue.
Yeah. Okay, just go ahead. BC. Whenever there's a change slide, maybe I did not catch it, then you just tell me now.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So for those who are unfamiliar with me, I have written 4 books. The latest one is, of course, in collaboration with Evelyn. Prior to that, in 2020, I wrote a book called Global Economic Collapse. That was released in May. And one of the towards the end of the chapter, I did mention about the COVID, that is going to be a major event if, let's say, they have if, let's say, it's allowed to spread and cause a lot of damage to the economy. But other chapters than that, I talk a lot about inflation, about global debt, and so forth. So that book actually, you know, when it was released in 2020, I got some very bad comments. They mentioned that I trying to scare people, you know, things like that. So but if, let's say, you know, if you really study the data of global debt and all those, you know that, you know, you cannot be maximizing your credit card, and after you have maximized it, then you borrow money in a personal loan to keep on spending, and then after you have exhausted your personal loan, you actually refinance your house to continue to spend. All this will only lead to major problems, and right now we are seeing all these problems revealing itself. So released in 2020, it was maybe 2 years in advance. But prior to that, in 2014, I wrote invest in foreign share, which came out to be Popular's top 10 non-fiction bestseller in August 2014. Then I subsequently wrote Invest in REITs in 2016, which went into its 3rd print. But all these books are no longer on sale, mainly because there were repeat orders, but then I declined to continue to sell because times have changed, especially, you know, if we look back, you know, 8 years or 6 years ago, how the economy has changed. So there's no point, you know, pushing something that is old-fashioned, I guess. Yeah. So before that, I've also spoken at a number of Bursa events with UOB Kay Hian, Hong Leong Investment Bank, RHB, Kananga, and Inter-Pacific Securities, talking to them about the about how to use benchmarking and KPIs as a means to filter out the companies. So I have appeared in several media, including Banana TV, where I was asked to share my thoughts on cryptocurrencies. So that was in 2018. At that time, the crypto was at $16,000. But of course, we know what happened then. At that time, I told people that if you want to invest in crypto, you really have to be very, very strong-hearted. Okay, but of course, subsequently, crypto went up to 60 over 1,000 before. Now it's all collapsing back about 80 to 90% down, and that is why.
We will see crypto also chances that it will come back again. Okay, but maybe I will not dare to predict, you know, how much it will come back, but definitely it will receive, you know, an attention, and in the future I think we will have real transaction in crypto. In fact, I'm going to sort of, you know, do a non-fungible MFT, some of my work also.
Yeah, I think the crypto, in our book, we actually, you know, in our book, which we are now doing a preview, we actually have a section on crypto where you know, we put our thoughts on how crypto will be, and it's going to be pretty interesting read, and it has a lot to do with the evolution of crypto, with the involvement of central banks and such. So if you're interested, you know, you can actually have a look. And of course, I'm a co-founder with Cassie Lau for the IFS program, and also with Wellford, for the MIP program. Next slide.
Okay.
So so you can the slide before, Evelyn, there's one more.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my Facebook page. If you want to know, I write very frequently on my Facebook page. I have also Instagram and Twitter, but Facebook is where I wrote the most. If you want to read my writings, you can actually refer to that. Then I also have a YouTube channel. Okay, and next slide.
Okay. Let me just put
So
this
what?
down in the chat.
Yeah. So what does our book actually actually reveal? Okay. So in that book we talk about energy crisis. As as Evelyn mentioned, even in the astrology side, you know, there is predicting that's going to be energy crisis, and also that's going to be housing crisis and a financial crisis. So what we are likely to see in 2023 is a compaction of multiple crises, one after the other, within a very narrow timeline. If you are interested to know why I came to that conclusion, you can go to my Facebook page and read about my postings, or you can go to Evelyn's YouTube channel or my YouTube channel to watch our videos on why we predict that the way things are. So of course, I think the most dangerous one is the financial crisis, but it will all be a housing crisis first. Now, as you all know, the biggest purchase, okay, of ordinary household is actually in the big ticket items, such as automobiles and property. Now, if we all know that, you know, US is facing a housing crisis and such, and if the housing market collapse, then the next one will be a financial crisis, because it has a lot to do with all the loans. So especially right now in the environment of rising interest rate, you know, is banks will be very unwilling to lend, and then people who have taken mortgages have to pay higher mortgages and all those. So you can actually read more about this in our book. Then of course, there are several scenarios. Now, stagflation, which is actually high inflation plus slowdown in GDP growth, will be very prevalent. Because as I mentioned, and Evelyn has mentioned just now in the astrology, there is a deglobalization move resulting in supply chain disruption. When there's supply chain disruption, eventually it will lead to high inflation. Okay, and Europe will be most vulnerable. In fact, because Europe is facing both the industrialization and energy crisis, so therefore Europe is the most vulnerable. It's going to be very bad for Europe. Okay, in the book, there's actually everything dedicated towards why we think that Europe will actually be the most badly hit. Okay, then of course there are supply chain issue, especially semiconductors. Now, very current news is that you know, TSMC has become USMC. Okay, from Taiwan. Yeah, you know, Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing now has become US semiconductor manufacturing, because they have shifted all over to US. So what will happen is, when US control that, okay, how successful will the US be? You know, we also share our belief on the kind of direction that the semiconductor will take. Definitely, there's going to be supply chain issue, because you know, it's again deglobalization, and of course there's containment of China. So in that book, we share what we think about the Chinese semiconductor market, what we think about the US semiconductor market, and how the supply chain issue would actually create a lot of problems. Then of course, like Evelyn mentioned just now, the lack of the earth element suggests that there'll be a lot of weak governments, and already we are seeing it. You know, political turmoil is all across Europe. You know, and the funny thing is that in Europe they have this what they call the Zelensky curse. It's like any politicians who have visited this Zelensky year suddenly find themselves out of job. Okay, including Boris Johnson, including this Liz Truss. Okay, then recently the Slovakia prime minister, I think. So people have visited Zelensky actually, find themselves losing their job. And then Nancy Pelosi visited him, and then right now, the Democrats have lost the House majority. So in Europe, because there's rising cost of living, shortage of food, there's going to be protests, demonstration, and riots, and even in emerging markets as well. So all across the world, we will see this, and food inflation will be the main issue. Next slide.
Okay. This one, financial.
Yeah. So in terms of financial, in the book, we also highlight why we think that there's going to be a blow up in the debt market. No matter how high the interest rate, okay, or the government bonds are, it will still lose out to inflation because it's sustained over a long period. Okay, now just imagine that right now the 10-year yield of the US bond treasury is delivering about 3.7 or 3.8% for 10 years. But inflation right now is at 7%. So it's actually a negative return. And because of this negative return, more and more people are actually dumping US government bonds. In fact, my Facebook page, I recently wrote about this. Okay. And then there's potential default by central banks. We also highlight why some central banks need to be recapitalized. And central banks in Europe, quite a number of them are actually facing negative equity. Okay. When a company is facing negative equity, it means they are good as having to close shop. So central banks are actually facing negative equity because of now central banks' major assets that they held are actually in bonds. So when interest rate rises, the bond value drops. So that's why the central bank's asset drop. But the amount of money that is in the market is actually the central bank's liability. So that is why they have negative equity. Now, companies and individuals are vulnerable to financial chaos. Okay, no matter who we are or how, even the top 1%, okay, they will still be vulnerable in any financial chaos. And that is why in publishing this book, we hope to help people understand which sector could be the most resilient given the circumstances, and also as a form of hedging. Okay, then central banks are actually in a lurch, torn between fighting inflation and saving the economy, because if all these crises happen, then the economy will collapse. So eventually, why Evelyn and I thought that the inflation will never go back down to the previous years is because when the economy collapses, the central banks either have to save the economy, okay, or the government will lose their jobs. So the government would never want to lose their jobs, and they will force the central banks to react. And because of that, when they react to save the economy, as per all the years, is through money printing. So that would again create another cycle of inflation. That's why we are in a situation whereby things can continually worsen until some governments decided to bite the bullet and let it collapse for a long period of time. Like during the 1929, the Great Depression, when it happened all the way to 1932, the Dow index did not return back to its prior high before the Great Depression until the 1950s. So we are easily talking about 2 decades of the Dow needing to recover back its previous high. And for those who look at the credit market, where global debt right now is more than 3 times the global GDP, and the amount of debt in the market is double, more than double of the. In fact, last time I did a calculation, I think if I'm not wrong, it's about 150 or 170% higher than 2008, the amount of debt in the market. So it can only be much worse. So that is why central banks, if they want to fight inflation, they will continue to raise interest rate. And the more interest rate that they hike, the more the central banks will be in default, because they whatever debt they have continued to sustain all through the years, okay, I mean the government will be in default, because through all the debts that they have sustained all through the years, they would need to pay a much higher interest to service those debt. And that is why the government will go bankrupt if inflation, if the interest rate goes too high, the economy will collapse. If they save the economy, the currency will collapse. So that is the dire situation that we are now facing. Of course, in the book, we also talk about cryptocurrencies challenges and the introduction of CBDCs. Now, I think the introduction of CBDCs is going to be a challenge. A lot of people will fight against that. Like the Bank of England, this is not in the book, because when we wrote the book, okay, this was not in, okay, but
the
in
latest
that
news.
Book, we actually predicted that it will happen, okay, because it all started in the introduction of CBDCs. Some supermarket in Netherlands, when people buy the supermarket product, they actually have a carbon footprint, which means if you consume this product, you will have your carbon footprint being captured. So the Bank of England, which we say that the CBDC eventually would link to the carbon footprint. And yes, indeed, the most recent one just a few days ago, okay, Bank of England suggested that consumption has to be linked to the carbon footprint. So what this means is if they introduce the CBDCs, your digital wallet could ban you from consuming goods that carry high carbon footprint until you buy from the market carbon credits to offset your carbon footprint. And that is why, there is a carbon trading exchange, so that people, it's just like not good enough. You have precious metals or resources exchange, commodities market. Okay, then you have the stock market, you have the bond market. Coming soon will be the carbon credit market. So Bank of England suggested, in fact, we predicted in our book, okay, that Bank of England, eventually central banks will link it to the carbon footprint. And when Bank of England mentioned this, can you imagine that if you want to buy certain things, you are banned because you have utilized your carbon limits, and then you need to buy, okay? So what you do is you are helping to, this kind of regulations will actually enrich other people at your own expense, okay? So this is how this book has
daylight robbery.
Yeah. So this is, in collaborating with this to Evelyn Astrology and my understanding of global trends, we have actually weaved a tapestry of events that could likely to happen. And therefore, I think it will provide a very deep insight into what comes next, especially for next year. So next slide.
Okay.
And of course, in the geopolitics side, there's going to be sustained conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and this will not stop because to make them impotent to pose a threat to Russia anymore. Of course, there's going to be tension in Taiwan Straits, conflict in Middle East involving Iran. North and South Korea tension continues to shimmer. And then, of course, we talk about new BRICS reserve currency coming. So in the ending of the book, we actually have has a special chapter that's dedicated to help you understand what is the new BRICS reserve currency and what are the countries that are involved. Next slide. So this is a chapter from the book where we talk about the housing sector. And this is a chart from the book, which if you download this from this chart is how, you know, we come to the conclusion that there's going to be a housing crisis. Now, if you look at it, okay, the current mortgage actually have dropped slightly. Okay, this was about a month ago. So it's now about 6.7 or 6.8%. But if you look at it, mortgage rate was 6.21% before the housing, you know, before housing reached a peak in December 2006. Okay, here, and then you know, the mortgage rate started to collapse because of the global financial crisis during this period. Now, not only we have the mortgage rate being higher than the last peak, but the price of houses have gone up by, you know, a huge amount. Okay, if you look at it, it has almost from this peak, okay, it has increased more than 40%. So that's why, you know, the amount of debt has become so huge. Yeah. So the amount of debt that is carried by household has become so huge. And in a rising inflation environment, household wages, real wages, have actually been negative for 20 consecutive months. At the time of writing the book, okay, it was 19 consecutive months. So next slide. So we, on the chapter about the earth element and the housing sector, you know, we come up with charts that shows that, you know, housing will continue to drop. Okay, they are now dropping here. So the NAHB index collapsed to 33 in November. And even that, we already mentioned in the book that, you know, it's going to continue to become worse. And in December, it dropped to 31. So NAHB index is actually the National Association of Home Builders. So if the home builders already, you know, their confidence index have already dropped further, what can you talk about, you know, what can you say about the housing, which means they're very negative about housing, you know, in view of all the, you know, all the high mortgage rates and so forth. So that's why it will herald a housing crisis. Okay, in fact, in my free webinar that we, you know, every January, May, and September, I have actually a 1.5 to 2 hour long webinar of Invest Foreign Share that is free, okay, conducted with Casey Lau. And in the May session, I already predicted that that's going to be a housing crisis. Okay, and as we go along, you know, these are slowly being revealed. So next slide.
Okay, yeah. Amid of all this chaotic situation, actually there's a lot of opportunity. Don't you agree? Because every time when there's a chaotic situation, there's always an opportunity. What we have written today is not to scare anyone, but it's to share that the potential opportunity that we will have in the future. Okay, so if you really know what will be the future, and you can see, and then you can see the opportunity very well. You can actually download a free chapter of our book. In this link here, I shall put the link where chapter 1, we will introduce you to the 5 elements in Chinese astrology, the 20 years of transition arrow, the arrival of new spring, the Li Chun chart, the I Ching hexagram, because I have used all these tools to predict, not only one tool, but 3 tools. In fact, personally, in the background, I also use other tools, also more sophisticated, to predict the year, the energy. So they are all correlated. In fact, just a tips here, maybe for the first half of the month, things will still be okay. After that, half a year later, then it will really turn quite bad. And then in chapter 6 to chapter 10, we look at the industry performances of all these elements. As I said, all these elements are represented by, I actually represents industries. Different industries are represented by different elements and how they perform. And we even give some pointers on the opportunities, right, BC?
Yeah. At every end of the chapter involving the elements, we actually share what are the sectors we think will actually perform well, okay, going into in 2023 and beyond. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I will really encourage you to just download a free chapters of our book. Take a look at it. It's actually not very expensive. You can actually get this book for free if you enroll in our membership. Let me just share a little bit about the membership. You can get the book free if you enroll in our membership, where every month we will talk about the coming month's trend. The foresights will enable you to make better decisions. Then you can also, we will have a special Zoom session in 2023 in January, and you will get contents actually 2 weeks ahead, sorry, not 2 months ahead, which is only open for members, although we put in our talks in the YouTube channel, but we'll put in much later. The members will get privileged to have 2 weeks ahead's content and a private Telegram group for Q&A, and also the file that we have for the monthly the presentation, we will give the PDF file to you all as well for this membership. And you can actually enroll in this membership. If you are interested, you can take a look at this membership through this form here.
Another thing, if you are in the Telegram channel, you will not only be able to ask questions. For those who are already our members, they can readily testify that as soon as any economic news that comes out that we believe that the members would benefit from, then we would actually post in articles or post in comments or post latest charts of certain events on the Telegram channel, so that you are constantly being informed of the changing trends. Okay, like I say, what we wrote with regards to the book, some events that we predicted are already happening. So that so if you are being a member, also being in the Telegram group, constantly Evelyn and myself, we will post articles or charts, events, news that will actually help you have a better understanding of how things are transpiring, and keep abreast of current events.
Yeah, that's right. So these are the advantages, and we are closing the membership by end of January. We will not accept any more membership after that, because this is for the whole year one. You have to wait till next year already. So the opportunity will be 1 year later. Actually, next year will be a very good opportunity if you really knows how to play your cards well, in maximizing what the situation has offered you. Because in Chinese, we say that 危机. That means every crisis, there is always an opportunity. Don't you agree so? Okay. So this is generally what we have. So finally, I think this is the end of our talk. You can actually, connect with us through LinkedIn, through Facebook, and then our YouTube channel, which I've already given. And also, if you want, you can also, join my Telegram group as well. So here, I will give you the link to our Facebook, and also our this one. And also we are open for Q&A. Any questions that you all would like to ask regarding the year, because it's going to be a very exciting year. I'm sure a lot of people will have a lot of questions to ask. We also appreciate subscription to our YouTube channel, help us to grow and to also spread what is correct.
In fact, every month we would actually have a preview of the next month's potential events and so forth, so that you actually have a greater understanding of what to expect. But generally, if let's say you subscribe, then you'll be able to be notified once we post we post on our YouTube channel and things like that, and also allow you to have a better keeping abreast, because like I say, every month things are rapidly changing. And for those who have followed our YouTube channel, we have predicted quite a lot of things, and most of them have come up to be quite true. Albeit, sometimes there could be a delay of a few weeks, but it's definitely changing. For example, in October, I think October 26th, we have a session for November, and then Evelyn was sharing that the astrology charts are showing that there is a shortage in precious metal supply and all those. And at that time, the gold was trading at about $1,600 per ounce, 1,600 plus. And right now, gold has already breached 1,800, above $1,800 per ounce. So these are the things that that Evelyn share, and then I do a check on the kind of behavior of the precious metal market, and then we also share some charts and tables. Why what Evelyn projected can likely also happen based on the current trends. So what we do is actually combining the astrology indicators with economic indicators and financial indicators to give you a broader set of picture. And I think there's no one in the market that does this. Okay.
Yes, that's right. And the membership is only 90 ringgit for the whole year. It's less than 10 ringgit for a month, and it costs, I think, less than even a Starbucks coffee. Okay.
Yeah, but
so
you have
really
to buy the book to offset the price. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, because the book roughly is about 39 ringgit. Actually, we place it at what? $899 or $890.
$890. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Plus minus that. So actually, we are not doing that so much, for this one. We are doing that because we really have passion and we really have interest in this subject matter. Like PC, he really has, the passion in the subject matter to bring you the most accurate news, and to study the trend and everything. And his economic collapse is actually right on time. At 2020, we already more than 50% reset into the period 9 already. That's when the thing comes in. And if you can check even the astrology chart of that year on I think December 20th, there's a great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, the two biggest planets conjunct together, align together, and give the biggest energy. And this energy also really impacts the earth. And how do I wish I get the book at that time to give me more insights in 2020s at the point of the time. Okay, the members monthly. Okay, the members monthly meeting actually is in the morning, but you will also get your the recording, I think maybe a few days later. Usually we have it in the morning, right, PC?
Yeah, at 11 a.m.
Yeah. Anyway, if you miss out anything, you can the recording will be almost like, I think the most is give us about three days, like this 3 or 4 days. We will put it in our YouTube channel.
Yeah. Normally we will, once we have the recording, we will post it to the members, and then the members will actually have the immediate access. And only much later, I think about 2 weeks, then we'll post it in YouTube. So you have upfront information. Yeah.
And also you have a Telegram channel to also, you can view the YouTube, and you have the Telegram channel to ask questions also if you want to. And then PC and I will be there to answer the questions as well, even if you miss a session.
Yeah. I think some of your like, I think Juki has signed up, if I'm not wrong. Then I think he can readily attest that already the members are actually receiving charts and information about news much sometimes, concurrently that I receive the news, I will actually send it out to the people, and you won't have the news until the mainstream media report it maybe 1 or 2 days later. But in that sense, and also right now the mainstream media is that they are heavily censored. Okay, anything that is pro-Russia or pro-China, you won't see it in the news. Okay, they do not want to tell that how is Russia is doing, or how well China is doing. Anything that's bad about these two countries, the mainstream media will be there. Okay, but how successful they are, what they are doing, you won't get the information unless you really go into certain sites. Sometimes we even subscribe to those channels. Okay, that we get the kind of news that we are able to share. So we are like the data center. Okay, we collect data from our multiple sources. Okay, and then we find out those that are more meaningful, and then we send it out to the members.
Yeah, we filter out everything, and then what deemed as the truest, then we will share it with the members. And for those that are who are investment or you're investment banker, so actually it's good for you that you are in this, in the membership. At least you can recommend the best sector, and your clients will even have more confidence in you. You are not doing what the average peers are doing, but you are doing something that bring values to your clients as well, because they already have the information ahead of time, and you are able to give that information accurately. And I'm sure that your clients will follow you even more and have more confidence in you. Right.
Yeah, I think sometimes is that just to share with you. Okay, don't say even prime minister can make that kind of mistake. Now I just want to share this. For example, when Pakatan Harapan won the first election, won the previous election, in 2018. Then they were looking for funding. So our dear Dr. M went to China to ask for loans at a good interest rate. So a lot of things were agreed upon, and then upon saying all the necessary thing, our dear Dr. M go and say, well, I hope it's not another debt trap. And that really angered the Chinese government, because here you are negotiating something with us, and we give you a very good rate. You say it's not a debt trap. Why Dr. M say it's a debt trap? Because all the mainstream media was saying it's a debt trap when you borrow money from China. Is because of a report that is regurgitated and also spread all over because of the Sri Lanka takeover of the port by a Chinese company. Now, latest information that after so many years, there is a report which I put out to the members of my other group with KC Lau IFS. At that time, we haven't started this global trends membership yet. Now, that report actually shows the one Chinese debt to Sri Lanka is only 11%, same as Japan. 70% of the debt is from Western countries. So how can it be a debt trap? Now, the reason why it's called a debt trap is because China took over the port when the government failed to pay. It's an asset, and Sri Lanka actually also owe them money, but they cannot have access to that. So that is why, it become, they badmouth it and say that it's a debt trap. Now, the recent Sri Lankan bankruptcy and all those, no doubt is due to bad government. But why do they have not enough food? Now, one of the primary lender to the Sri Lankan debt is actually BlackRock. BlackRock insists that in order to lend money to Sri Lanka, they have to adopt the ESG policy. which means they have to buy fertilizer that meet the ESG guidelines, not the cheap fertilizer that is readily available. So when you impose on Sri Lankan farmers to buy expensive fertilizer that meets the ESG guideline, they cannot afford. So they don't have fertilizer. And when you don't have fertilizer, how can you produce enough crop? So that is what actually happened. Now, regarding the takeover of the port, actually it comes with a KPI. If the Chinese company failed to deliver a certain percentage of growth in that port, the government will actually take it back because they failed to generate growth in that port economically. So all this were actually left out, but it's regurgitated all over the news media that is a debt trap. But 70% of Sri Lankan's debt actually comes from the Western companies, IMF, World Bank, BlackRock, you know. So that is how the mainstream media actually twists the other thing around, because China is US biggest competitor. And the only way, you can see that the US now is in decline. And the only way that they can, that they always tout the China threat, because they always say that China will actually affect the way we live our lives. China is a threat that will actually force US, you know, that will actually destroy the US way of life. Of course, because US has so much debt, okay? They cannot survive without that. That is why they always want to say that China is a threat, because China is not bowing down to the US. In fact, you know, if you read my Facebook, you know, recently I've shown that central banks are actually dumping the US bonds. So that is why, if you look at the mainstream media, there is a lot of things that is not reported. And we actually look at the alternative media, you know, scrounging the internet, listening to YouTube channels and all those to come up with a different point of view, you know, that this normally for ordinary people do not have the time to do. And that's why we simplify it, you know, any important news, we immediately, you know, deliver it to the members and so forth. Yeah, a bit of long-winded, but I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah. So just look at this is an example how the mass media, the main media manipulated, you know, all the information. Okay. So I think that's it for today. If there's no questions, I hope to see y'all in our membership area. Okay, and appreciate for calling in. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah,
there's
Merry
one question,
Christmas and
right?
Happy New Year.
Let me just have a look. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Karen. Karen also has been a regular also as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope to see you all in the members area. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.